You wake up. Before you brush your teeth, before you pour coffee, before you even fully open your eyes, you reach for your phone. You tap the banking app. You wait for the little circle to spin. And then you see it. The number. Same as yesterday. Maybe a few dollars more from interest. Maybe a few dollars less from that automatic payment you forgot about. You stare at it for a few seconds. Then you lock the phone and start your day. You do this every morning, not because you're waiting for a miracle, not because you expect the number to have doubled overnight. You check because something quiet inside you needs to know, needs to confirm, needs to make sure the money did not disappear while you were sleeping. This looks like anxiety. It looks like someone who does not trust their own financial life. But it is actually something more subtle. It is the brain's way of staying close to something that feels fragile. And the question most people never ask is this: why does seeing the same number every morning still feel necessary? Let me say this gently. If you check your bank account every morning, or every few hours, or every time you feel a flicker of uncertainty, you are not bad with money. You are not obsessive in a broken way. You are doing something that once kept you safe. Your brain learned, somewhere along the way, that money disappears, that bills arrive without warning, that the cushion you thought you had can vanish overnight. And so it keeps watch. It assigns you the job of looking, because looking feels like control. And control, even the illusion of it, is better than the terror of being surprised. Here's where this behavior shows up first. You've had a month where things went wrong. The car repair, the medical bill, the rent increase. You survived it, but something in you changed. Now you check, not because you need to spend, because you need to know that the disaster is not already happening again. The checking is not about planning, it is about reassurance. And reassurance, when you've been burned before, is not a luxury, it is a need. Think about what happens when you do not check. You feel a low hum of unease, a sense that something could be wrong and you wouldn't know it. That feeling is not irrational. It's the memory of a time when something was wrong and you found out too late. Your brain is not trying to annoy you. It is trying to protect you from the shame of being blindsided again. So you check, and for a few minutes the hum quiets. That relief is real, and it is why the habit sticks. The financial reason this happens is simple. Your brain hates uncertainty more than it loves potential gain. Behavioral economists call this ambiguity aversion, but what it feels like is a quiet knot in your stomach that only unties when you see the number. Checking your balance reduces the unknown. It turns a question mark into a period. Even if the answer is not what you hoped for, at least you know, and knowing, for a brain that has been hurt by surprises, is a kind of safety. But here's where the part most people miss. The number you check every morning is not just a number. It's a stand-in for something deeper. For most people, that balance represents freedom, security, or the absence of fear. When you check it, you are not really checking your bank account. You are checking on your safety. You are asking, "Am I still okay?" And the problem is not that you ask. The problem is that the answer never quite satisfies. Because safety is not a number. It's a feeling. And feelings don't update every morning at 7 a.m. The brain does something unexpected here. It confuses visibility with security. If you can see the money, if you can watch it, you believe it's real. But the moment you stop looking, the fear creeps back. That's why checking once a day becomes checking twice, then 3 times, then every time you open your phone. The checking does not resolve the fear, it feeds it. Each look gives you a tiny hit of relief, but relief fades, and the gap between looks becomes uncomfortable. So you look again, not because you are weak, because your brain has learned a pattern. Look equals feel better, and patterns are hard to break when they work even temporarily. Think about how this feels different at different stages of life. When you had very little, checking felt urgent. You needed to know if you could afford groceries. That was not anxiety, that was survival. Now you have more. But the checking didn't stop because the habit outlived the scarcity. Your brain is still acting like one unexpected expense could break you, even when it could not. That is not a failure of logic. That is the weight of memory. And memory doesn't update just because your bank balance did. Your relationship with money changes completely when you realize that checking is not the same as managing. Managing means reviewing statements, adjusting budgets, making plans. Checking is just looking, and looking without action becomes a ritual that gives you the feeling of doing something without actually doing anything. That is not a moral flaw, it's a cognitive shortcut. Your brain wants the reward of effort without the effort itself. And checking gives you that. It feels productive. It feels responsible. But it's mostly just a way to quiet the noise for 5 more minutes. This behavior reduces stress in a very specific way. It creates a ceiling on uncertainty. You don't have to wonder if something changed. You saw it. You confirmed it. The world is still in order. That tiny act of verification is like locking your front door at night. You know it's locked, but you check anyway, because checking is what lets you sleep. The metaphor is not a safety net, it's a nightlight. A nightlight doesn't stop bad things from happening, but it makes the darkness feel less dangerous, and sometimes that's enough to get through the night. So if you check your bank account every morning, or more often than you would like to admit, here's what I want you to hear. You are not controlling. You are not anxious in a way that needs fixing. You are someone who learned that money can leave without warning, and you decided you would never be surprised again. That is not a disorder. That is a lesson your brain learned well, maybe too well, but that doesn't make it wrong. The fact that you are even thinking about why you check means you are already more aware than most people ever become. Not because you will stop checking, not because you will suddenly trust the universe, but because awareness changes the relationship, and that relationship is the only thing that ever needed to shift, not the behavior, not the frequency, just your understanding of what you are really looking for when you open that app every morning. You are looking for proof that you are still safe. That's all. And wanting proof is not pathetic, it's human. It's the quiet inheritance of every financial scare you have ever survived. You do not need to stop checking. You just needed someone to tell you why you do it. And now you know. That is not a solution, it's something better. It's permission to stop judging yourself for needing to look. And that permission might do more for your peace than any bank balance ever could.